Okay, well, hello everyone, and welcome to the show again. And today I've got two Australian legends, two of the most distinguished people in the field of Aboriginal mythology and legends. I would describe it, they provide an unfiltered view of what the Australian Aborigines have told us. They've been researching for such a long time. They're very distinguished authors. They've written books such as Mary Magdalene's Dreaming, 2008, which compares Aboriginal with Gnostic traditions; Forgotten Origin, 2011; Ancient Aliens in Australia, 2013; Between a Rock and a Hard Place, 2016; Out of Australia, 2017, which is an alternate to Out of Africa. And these two are very distinguished in Australia. They're at the top of Australian ancient mysteries, and I'm so pleased to have them here, to welcome them on the show. They've done such excellent work. Like so many people in the ancient mysteries community, they're not really getting the recognition they deserve. They've done archaeological work. We're going to talk about a forgotten Stonehenge in New South Wales. They've done anthropological work on skulls. We're going to hear all about that. Amazing things. I was happy enough to attend one of their talks in Melbourne just last year, and some of the stories I heard were unbelievable. It was the best talk I had ever heard. So I'm so happy to have them on here. Thank you guys for joining me. Would you guys like to introduce yourself? Welcome, Evan and Steve Strong.
Hi everyone. Yeah, it's good to be here today, and I'm glad in this day and age we have this forum, because it's a little bit hard to do live events these days. So yeah, very happy to be here.
Yeah, I am too, although I'm very much a reluctant participant in anything to do with electronics. We don't have a choice this time, so no, good, it's great. We're doing an online conference because there's nothing else we can do now. But yeah, look, it's very great of you to ask, nice of you to ask us on. I'm not so sure we're going to live up to the introduction, but we'll do the best we can.
We'll try.
Oh, I'm sure you will. Anyway, so guys, now you have made amazing discoveries. There are some skulls. When I was there last year at your talk, there were some skulls on a table, and I was warned by Steve, it's best not to touch these skulls. Would you like to give us an introduction as to what these skulls are, where they come from? And maybe you might like to get into your archaeological work as well, showing what the implications are and some of the things you've done with them.
Well, first up, there are 4 we know of in Australia. The skulls themselves are a mixed blessing insofar as that we're of the opinion, and this is very much an original belief and an indigenous belief, that skulls, rocks, and anything that's been touched by humans under certain conditions carries their consciousness, their DNA. So when we first started to stumble onto these skulls, I think when we did a presentation last year in Melbourne, well, we had 1 or 2 of them then, Evan. Probably 2.
Yeah, we did. We've probably got a few more now.
Yeah, well, yeah, we had 2 at the time. Now, the reasons why these skulls are different to any skull found, not just in Australia, but in the world, is because primarily these beings, what is going past us now? Okay, these beings have no forehead. Now, you've got to understand that human evolution is a story about someone like Lucy, 3.4 million years ago, with wide eyebrows and a little bit of a forehead, and then it slopes back, and there's only about 600 cc. There's bugger all in there, theoretically. And then as the years go on, because we have 3 sutures, our heads expand and we're up to 1300 cc. And what primarily happens is, as we get more intelligent, our frontal lobe increases and our forehead sticks up. That's how the world works. That's how all hominids work, and how sapiens work, how Denisovans work, Neanderthal, all work the same way. Well, these guys don't. And that's the problem here. Now, we've got 2 models I'll try and hold up. And what we actually did is we got 2 experts that took about, what, 6 months, Evan?
It was a fairly long time.
And
they worked hard on that.
And expensive too, yeah, and all well paid. And I'm going to show you this in 2 parts. And I'm going to hold the first one up first. And here's 8 pieces from the second place we went to, which I'm holding up now. And I'm holding that face on. Now, if you have a look at the way that forehead goes, and have a look at your own, and you'll realise that whatever genes are working on this one, we don't have them. And when I turn it around this way, what you primarily see is two massive eyes, and then when you're looking for the forehead, it's back here, and it goes a long way down. It means it's got a different sort of neck, and I'm holding this as it should be, face on. So from that, we'll go to the next stage, and here is a final product. Now, he's made a small mistake with this. He's given this more forehead than what it deserves, but there's a couple of things you will see with this one when I hold it up. Firstly, have a look at your eyes, then have a look at these, and then you'll work out something about your eyes. We're not the same. And then secondly, I'm going to hold it this way. Have a look at the shape of this. And can you see what happens where it flanges out at the back? Your head doesn't do that. I've asked many women the same question. Hand up the person who would volunteer to give birth to this thing. Not one of them put their hand up, and they all opted for cesarean. Because I would guarantee, because this is 17 at the back. Our width is 13. Now, what we find with this, and here's a Homo sapiens skull, which I'll hold up alongside, so you've got something comparative to look at, is that you'll find that the shape of the nose, one's triangular, one's circular. The eyes are different. The forehead, I'll get them straight up now so they're doing this properly, completely different. One is very much like us and the other is not. Now, the biggest issue with these beings is, number one, both the experts made the same comment, unsolicited, and they didn't know the other made this, and they both had the same issue. Why aren't there 3 sutures there? Now, that's not our comment. Now, I know that, and I can see it, and I'll hold up the back of one of these now. Here's the back here of the first one I showed you, and there should be a suture line here. There's nothing. And there's nothing down there but a crack. So we know the back suture isn't there. Now, there is a crack where the first part of the skull finishes, but sutures are on the top. They start on the top around here somewhere, not on the recession down there. Now, I'll hold up with you now just to guarantee that. Here is a sapien, and the suture line is up here, not down there. We don't think there's any sutures because at another burial site, we came upon a being that had none. In fact, before I got there, the reason I went there is they kept telling me, didn't they, Evan? There's a being there without sutures. And I thought, oh, well, that can't be right. It was right twice over. This is a different site to that one. This one was given to us, the professor or the academic who got this, took it to the authorities and they dismissed it and said it's a normal Homo sapien, go away. And eventually got back to talk to us. But the most important part of the first site we went to is not the eyes. It's not the massive brain, which is 1,700 cc. We're only 1,300. That tells me a lot about the intelligence of the two. The most important part of this, the first being, was the humerus bone. Now that is the bone that goes from the shoulder up to the elbow. And all hominids have one. I'm sure you've got 2 at the moment. Some people have occasionally, if they're unlucky, they have 1. But normally we have 2 of them. And they're all roughly the same size, about 28 to about 32 centimetres from there to there. Basketballer, maybe a big one, might go to 33. Gibbons are 35. And as you know, they're basically primates with massive arms and quite thick too. This one, the one I picked up and put against my arm, had gone down way past the elbow and I measured it at 44, but there was no elbow joint. So at the very least, it had to be 47, 48 if that's where the elbow joint was coming next, but I don't know that because we didn't dig, this one was laying on the surface. We didn't dig in.
We never got to the elbow, did we?
No. So my point being, what being would be walking around on this planet with an arm that long? But here's the problem. I looked at it straight away and thought, my God, that's thin. It's not thicker than 1 inch at any part. I can tell you now the Gibbons is twice that and more. So why is it the longest arm on the planet doesn't work? Why did nature make this? And then here's another question. Why did nature make a being His eye socket is 46% bigger than ours. Well, you'd have to wear sunglasses all the time. It wouldn't work in the day. So this being we found can't walk in the day, and has got arms that basically just hang around and are spectators. It doesn't work. But if you took the brightness of the sun away and you took the gravity away and halved it, which means you've got to leave here to do that, then it works. And that's what I've come up with. I've come up with the fact that we found 4 of these beings, right?
In completely different parts
2,000
of
k's
Australia
apart.
too.
2,000 k's apart.
We're not looking at a one-off mutation.
No, and they're in 3 different states in Australia. We know exactly where they are. So it's not a mutation in one tribe, it's not a mutation in 2 tribes, and more to the point, if it was a mutation at the burial site, the front 2 teeth were pulled out of this being. That is the same initiation given to original people until Australia was invaded. That means this person was given honour. And more to the point, this being was buried with their arms and their elbows up against their chest facing the east. Now, that's not what you do to a mutant. There's no use to you. This person was given great respect. But here's the trick. I made a mistake in the last sentence because we can't classify this being as a person. A, it doesn't have 3 sutures. B, it doesn't have our arms. C, it doesn't have our nose. D, it doesn't have our eyes. And even, you know, the furrow in the middle there that we've got, that little piece there. I'll hold this up. You'll notice that on this one here, it's not a furrow. On this side, you'll see it's actually a crest. So this face is nothing like us. Now, here's the trick. If your mother and father are the same, then all your species are roughly the same. Chimps look the same, zebras look the same, elephants look the same. That is how nature works. There's only one being on this planet where there are 7 billion of them and nothing look the same, and that's humans. But they tell us we came from the same mother and father as a chimp. Well, why is it all the chimps that came out of that still all look the same? They walk like John Wayne, they've got the same brown hair, they've got the same eyes, everything's the same. Why is it we're so different? Well, it's simple. I just showed you why. You put that into our genetic code, and you know what you get? You have such a diversity because this thing is so unlike us, and you mix us with them, then you can get humans to stand 1/2 metre and 2.5 metres, and they're still functioning. And they can weigh 40 kilos or 400 kilos, probably not functioning well at 400, but still alive. And they can eat anything. And every one of us has a different fingerprint. Every one of us has a different iris pattern. Why is that? There's 7 billion different variations on 2 eyes, 1 nose, and a mouth. There's so much you can do with this thing, but you can't do it with any other animal. Why don't Labradors all look different? Why do they have the same face? Sure, there's minor differences within it, very minor. But humans, no 2 of us even look close to each other. That's because we are part human and part Pleiadian. And of course, that's the trick with this. We are of the belief, because we asked the original people, who are they? And everyone gave us exactly the same story, word for word. In fact, it was interesting. When we drove to the professor's place, this is quite an interesting story too. And we were going to get this skull because we hadn't seen it, have we? No. We're driving there.
Blurry photos.
Blurry photos. We didn't know what we were going to see. As we're driving there, one of the Ramangeri elders, Wirichan, rang us on the phone. We're about 10 minutes away. Well,
yeah, we had to pull over.
We had to pull over, and he said, "You're going to see a skull, aren't you?" And I said, "Mate," I said, "What are you talking about? We haven't told you about this." He said, we know. You're going to see that skull." He said, "I want to tell you 2 things about that skull." I said, "Yeah, what are they?" First of all, it doesn't come from here. It's from elsewhere. And it's one of the sons of Bayami. Now, Bayami is the original creation spirit, and he came across the Milky Way, the sky hero. This is one of his sons, which I thought, this is very important. Then he went further. He said, "I'm going to tell you now, before you even meet this gentleman, where the skull was found." I thought, this is going to be interesting. He said it was found in the Wimmera region. I thought, well, you've really committed yourself here. It's okay to say it's the son of Bayami, because I can't disprove that, can I? it sounds pretty deadly. That's like, Jesus Christ, that would be the parallel. But to then say, I know where this skull's come from that I haven't told you about, but I know what area it is, well, that's a bit trickier. So we go and see this professor, this academic. I can't say who he is because he's given it to us and he doesn't want all the crap we get. And as I go and ask him, and the first thing I was going to ask him is, where was the skull found? He picks the skull up and holds it in his hand, and he says this sentence: this skull was found in the Wimmera region. That's the first thing he said, and I felt like that elder is actually puppet hearing this guy right now, and he's saying the words he wants him to say. So what does that tell me about this skull? Well, Biami came from the Milky Way, came through the Milky Way. It's a star being. They're sky heroes. Therefore, I now know that in our country, in Australia, they come from the Pleiades. Therefore, this is a Pleiadian. Now, the government knows about this too, don't they, Evan?
Yes.
They've written me many very detailed letters about these skulls with threats. I used to get 6 months or 3 years and $250,000 to $750,000 fine with my letters. And in the finish, it wasn't and or, it was both. So I went from and or to both. It was just, I'm getting both at once.
And I think the last one you got was just in
the
time
official
for Christmas.
warning. Yeah, at Christmas time, I got a warning from an official warning where it was a 2-page letter saying, after much consideration, years and years of this, and it's over not one side, it's over the Standing Stone side and the skulls, they've decided they're not going to prosecute us right now. But they made this proviso: in the future, if we see fit, we will prosecute you. And this was their official letter of warning, which means we're warning you that we won't do anything to you right now, but if you misbehave,
If you're naughty.
and if you're naughty, we have kept that proviso to let you know we will take you to court. So yeah, it's been an interesting story, but I can say now the government have backed off. Once we got the skull completely made, they left us alone because they don't want to go to court and let's hold that up. They're going to lose the case.
What was the nature of the threat? Was it to stop doing archaeological work or something like that?
It was to do with one thing that was given to me in the site by elders. They wanted back, so it could, the tribe that wanted it back would not do any science and bury it. And they got that piece back, didn't they?
They did. Yeah.
They got that back. It was about also us going onto that site because they assumed, because I knew it was a dangerous site to begin with, so I never spoke to the people who arranged it. It was always done through a third party, deliberately by me. And when I got there at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'd never met any of these people. Then I met elders at 8 o'clock that day I'd never met before. And they said, they tried to put me in jail for running the whole expedition. And I kept saying, I didn't do it. I turned up. I was very careful from the start because I knew this was a dangerous site, because a farmer had already been to the government and they told him, like with the professor, a different thing. They said, same thing, nothing to see here. And then they told him, under no conditions can you tell anyone about this ever. And 2 years later, we couldn't hold it up. So I sort of knew I was going to a place that was a bit iffy. So I made sure that I was basically working for these people at their request. And when I met the elders, I said, you're my bosses. Whatever you tell me to do, I do. So that went on for 2 years. And finally, they left us alone when the skull was made. And now, because the skull was made and we do have the bones, we're in a situation now where I want to do science. And they've got some original people to say they don't want to do any science but bury it. And the government says, well, we're beholden to them, so we can't do science. So we're the only people who are demanding to do proper science. And we have an academic that will do OSL to date it. He's one of the top experts on teeth in the world. He'll do that. He's already said he'll do it, and he's seen the skull. He's prepared to do it. I got all that ready to go. And they know what's going to come out of this. The DNA in this thing is not ours. It's going to be so different, you won't be able to compare it to anything. And I know that by looking at the skull. Because if you had DNA like that, your skull would not look like it is now. The whole of your face would be that different. And really, people don't understand it when we talk about mitochondrial DNA. The stuff that makes up our face is only 1%. But you look at us and a chimp, and you think we're the same. They've got the same nose all the time. It's not like ours. They've got different eyes. I mean, chimps' eyes are not, that you can't, if you put them in the water, they'll drown. we've got a sort of an aquiline sort of feature there, so that doesn't happen. Nothing about the face of a chimp is the same as ours. And that 1.5% they talk about, don't forget that we are 70% the same as a fruit fly. So when they make these statements about, oh, we're 1.5% off, everyone thinks, oh shit, that's close, then we must be the same. That 1.5% means they don't have sutures. None of the primates ever have sutures, which means their brains have all been the same size. And people try to tell you that monkeys and us had the same mother and father. That's not possible. The suturing dismisses that. What we have here is another being. I don't know how the woman gave birth, but I don't think it's the same way that we give birth in this country.
Otherwise, it's very ouch.
Very ouch. It won't get out, mate. It'll just stay there. I can't. No, it's cesarean or die. Yeah. So, yeah, we've got a skull. And, of course, that's what this, to an extent, that's what this conference we're putting up is about. We're trying to show people that we talk about UFOs today. We want to show you about them in the past. I mean, we've got another artifact up there at the moment, which is, can you get it, Evan? It's up on that one now. That was looked at by the Southern Cross Environmental Analytical Laboratory, which is a science institute inside Southern Cross University. It has 38 scientists. And the top scientist there, and I can use his name, was Graham Lancaster, and he begged me to get permission to look at that object. I'll hold it up both ways. It's flat on one side like that, and it's like this on the other.
What is it?
And you might see on the top there, there's a bit of a clasp there that was broken because it was used as for jewelry. Right up there, there's a round piece there. Anyway, if you look very carefully on this side, you'll see where there's a lick. See where it's been chipped away? That was done in the laboratory. And you know what they did in the laboratory? They analysed this. We found out exactly what's inside it. This is the best laboratory in Australia. The guy did it for free. Because not all the scientists in the world think we're idiots. And they come up with this: 73% aluminium, 3% copper, 24% metals not on the periodic table. They don't exist on this planet. Now, if people want proof that alien technology and alien have been here, we just got it for you. These guys, I saw them. I played tennis with him. That's how come we got it done for free. And he asked me, what's going on with that piece of metal? Why haven't they picked it up? I said, mate, we're dealing with mainstream. I need 7 mallets. But my point is that what's weird about this is not the fact that 24% of it, no laboratory in the world can identify. That's not the weird part. The weird part is what they could identify. And that's this. It was 73% aluminium, 3% copper. Aluminium and copper have never been used together, but more importantly, all aluminium alloys in the world are 85% or above, which means this is lower, which means it should fall apart. But when they put the aluminium drill on top, it slid off. They couldn't even pierce it. That cut you've got there was with a tungsten tip. They couldn't do it with anything else. The guy looked at the boss, Graham, I know the other guy, his name's Mark Pocock. He put it on and slid off, and he looked at him, and Graham was giving him daggers like, what have you done? We look like amateurs, and we tried to drill through it, it bounces off. He said, boss, I'm using the right drill for aluminium. They had to go to a much harder drill to pierce this. So what is the 24% they put in there? It's not from this planet. So yeah, we've got proof from that point of view, from the skulls, and we've also got it in the rings. We've had the 3 rings analysed. And I think you know about those rings.
Oh, yes.
Don't you?
I'd love to hear about the rings because this is amazing. Now, in English mythology, there was a fellow called Voland. He made rings on an island, and he's similar to Hephaestus or Vulcan or Loki. And eventually he got tired, that flew away. Bit of ancient astronaut in there. Tell us about the ring.
Well, there's 3. Okay, there are 3 rings. The first one we had analysed. And we took all 3 of these rings to the same place to be analysed by the same machine. It's very important you do that because that saves a lot of people attacking us, saying, oh, you've used different things, and they don't know. It's the same place each time. We took it there, we had it analysed, and it turned out it was a combination of 5 elements. Copper and zinc are the main components. In fact, they make up 99.5% of the whole makeup, and the other 3 are zinc, iron and nickel, and they make up 0.5. There is no set of alloys like that in the world today anywhere. We looked it up. We couldn't find it. It doesn't exist. In fact, if you put those 5 elements in that order, you'll only get one readout, and that's Wikipedia. Now, Wikipedia, I've read about what they say about us, and they don't like us, do they, Evan?
No.
They're not keen on us at all. So I didn't want to look at it for a while, but I had no choice, man, because there was nothing else. And when I looked it up, I turned it over, and there's the word Pliny the Elder, Homer, and Plato. I said, hang on for a sec, I don't care if it's Wikipedia. If we're using those authorities, I want to read it. And they all spoke about this, and they gave us exactly the same breakdown. It's called ORICHALCHUM. Now, ORICHALCHUM, according to Wikipedia, is a mythical metal that was found in a mythical continent of Atlantis. It doesn't exist anywhere else. These 3 rings we've got have components in it that aren't made anywhere on the planet. They don't exist. If Atlantis and Lemuria are true, they do exist, but if they're not true, they don't. Well, we have one, which is a contradiction. Now, I can tell you there was some orichalcum found in a Roman galleon in Sicily, 6th century.
2015, they found that one.
They found that around about the same time this was found, and we've seen the computer readout. And what I can tell you about that is all of their copper is 75% or higher. Ours is 72.9%. Their zinc is 20% or lower. Ours is 25.9%. And their 3 trace elements are 5 to 10%, and ours is 0.5%. So yes, both are orichalcum, but they didn't come from the same mine. Now we believe, according to what Pliny the Elder said and what Plato said, there was one mine left after the destruction of Atlantis, and the Romans used it for coins. And in the 4th century, Plato spoke about Atlantis in the past tense, and Pliny the Elder said the mines were exhausted in the 2nd and 1st century. So we know it was gone by then. We think that was the last mine they were mining. But the ring is completely different. It came from a different mine. And because of the fact, the 2 markings on there are, one, the insignia for Atlas, the son of Poseidon, and the other are 5 rings of different diameter with straight lines and vertical lines above, which represents the 5 rings, inner rings of Atlantis, with the roads coming through. We know this was stamped with the markings of Atlantis on it. So we now believe we have absolute proof of Atlantis. But what's more interesting is not that. It's the other one. The other 2 rings, because the other 2 rings don't come from Atlantis, they come from Lemuria. They were both stolen at Angkor Wat during the Vietnam, when the Americans liberated Cambodia during the Vietnam War and helped them. During that time of help, they also stole 2 rings, and we got them. One was in Israel and one was in London, okay, and we got them both back. They've been analysed. Now, these rings are ancient looking. And one has 2 elephants and 2 monkeys, and the one I've got here has on it, I'll just hold it up for you now. It's got 2 monkeys, 2 elephants, and 2 pigs. And you'll notice, if you see my finger inside the ring itself, it's not made for humans. Wow. That ring is massively wide, right? It's huge. It's not for humans. I can put both my fingers inside that ring, see that? Wow. And there's still room to put the little finger in there. So it wasn't made for you and I. I'm sorry. I put it on sometimes, and when you do, this is what it does. It just falls over. Now, it weighs 86 grams, but all the weight is in one part. So it's poorly balanced unless your finger is wrapped into it. You've got to have it locked in. Otherwise, it just falls over because it's all there. Now, what was interesting is this was initially all brown. And I started rubbing on it, and the gold came through, and I looked at the Atlantean ring. I thought, my God, they're the same. Let's get them analysed. So Ros gets hers analysed first. And it's got the copper, it's got the zinc, it's got the iron, it's got the lead, but it didn't have the nickel. They took that out and put in titanium. Now, here's the trick. Titanium was discovered by William Gregory in 1791, but first used industrially in any shape or form in 1930. Think about the ring from Angkor Wat, 1930. And do you know what it was used for originally? If you've heard of 24 karat gold, It is 99% gold and less than 1% titanium. And because of that, it makes it harder than 14 karat gold, because titanium has the highest density to strength ratio of any metal on the planet. And that's under 1%. This one has over 1%. The other one, sorry, the first one has over 1% titanium in it. Now that's quite bizarre, because it shouldn't be there. Because that technology and melting titanium and putting it in a ring and over 1%, not under, that makes it much harder. Now, the point is, we didn't do that. I mean, the Russians and the Americans have been using it for atomic particles. They use it for high-tech weaponry because it's so strong, and they're using it from the 50s on for those sort of reasons. But Angkor Wat was found in 1830, which is, let me think, about 100 years before it was supposed to be used. So I got a question with that ring. It don't fit. Now, the one I've got here, it has in it 6 elements. It has every element from ORICHALCHUM. It's got the same, all of that, and then they put in a little smidgen of tin in that one. So what you've got is 3 rings, but when you look very carefully at them, they've all got the same base. And they've been made in ways that we don't do today with the first ring, or secondly, we couldn't do until the 1930s anyway, and they're both ancient. So what does that tell us about our past?
These alloys, so you found that alloy before with the aluminum, and you've got the rings as well, which is a similar but amazing high-tech alloy as well. Yeah. How old do you think this is, and when was this high-tech civilization around?
This ring, if you look at it carefully, and you probably won't see it, but it's degraded up here. There's a hole that goes through it. It is obviously, and I think the brown actually protected it because they were both found in the dirt at Angkor Wat. They were buried away from there, and I think they were taken away deliberately. I believe these rings are incredibly old. I'm not saying thousands, I'm going about tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of years old, because they have within them, and I'm sure you're probably aware of this, and we probably have a chance to talk about it today so much, but they have within them, I mean, we can do the science and win, okay? And we already have. We've done the science. We've proved the points here. What we're also trying to prosecute is the magic part of this story, because these rings have a power. The first ring, yes, has a power, doesn't it, Evan?
It certainly does.
Oh, my God. We won't go through that today. But look, what we've learned about that is I've tried to be very analytical about this, but I can tell you now, the fact that they're ancient, the fact that they're alloys, the fact that we can't make them, and the fact that they represent an ancient civilization of high technology is very important. But you've got to understand they had even higher magic than technology. That's what's really amazing about this story. Yeah, these things don't fit. I mean, we actually put up an article recently called 6 pieces of 6 artifacts that do not fit. They don't belong in Australia, and they break our whole history. We haven't had, well, boy, we haven't had one scientist attack us on that, because on 5 of those, we went to scientific analysis, the best in the country, and got done, like that one thing I showed you there. Okay, now that was found at Carry-On, at the Carry-On glyphs, next to the funeral shaft with the 10-metre shaft there. And we also found a bone there. And I've taken that to the top base hospital in the area, and they've told me it's an ancient bone. It's a femur bone, and they were found together. We believe that it belongs to the son of the Pharaoh Khufu, Nefertari. That shouldn't be here either. All of these things, we have science. The skull is science. The rocks are science. The rings are science. The bones are science. We've got plenty of it. And really, what we're trying to do in our presentation we're putting up is we're presenting all that to people to say, look, they were here. Get over it. Stop calling them little green men, because they were every shape and size imaginable. And I'm going to show you some now. One group, the Pleiadians, they were here. And when we finished our presentation, when the others speak, we've then broken away the first door, which is they were here in the past. And of course, the logic is this. If they were here in the past, why can't they still be here? What's to stop them continuing a process that already began? And then it makes it easy for people to talk about their experiences with aliens, because then you've broken away this conditioning you get at school. I should know, I'm a teacher. I was there for a long time. I know that teaching died when I started teaching there, and it went on to conditioning. But now people can't break that away. Now, if you show them the skull and say, here's that, and here's a bit of archaeology, and here's a chemical readout from your top laboratory, it's all alien. Where do we go from there? So that's really what we're talking about.
Now, I've got one last question.
Yeah.
So you both favour the idea of out of Australia because you found this ancient skull. I believe you said it's 500,000 years old. Is that right?
Well, our understanding, I can't prove that. The skull that we have and the one that we found, we suspect, we know that on one, the first one, the burial site, it was buried on the side of a bank of a river, which was the Murray River, and that moved 60,000 years ago. So we know it's pre that, but we have evidence from elders to tell us it's around 900,000 to 1 million years. That's when they first came. And these ones are supposed to be, if it's supposed to be, which I'm told from my elders, the son of Byami, I'm just going with what I've been told, and it's the same person who told me where it was found, and that puts it around 900,000. So yeah, it's way back. It's way back.
Could these be the animal-headed gods of ancient Egypt? You put a funny-looking head on top of a human-looking body, perhaps, and these are the ancient teachers or something like that.
Exactly, because on the carry-on glyph side, there's a story of genetic engineering. And the Greeks and their stories of Pan and the different gods being part this and part that. Look, every day you're finding new hominids. I found one quite recently called, well, they've had it for a while, but they just realised what it was. It's called Heidelbergensis. And it's got an ancient face like Lucy. Looks so old, doesn't it, Em?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You couldn't grab it, could you, really quick? It's just around here. It looks so old. And you think, oh my God, it's 600 cc because it's got such an old, it's got a really sloped face. Like this one I'm showing you now, the being that we've got, it's got a very flat face. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Very flat face. Now this one, let me show you the face on this first. Does that look ancient?
Yes, it does.
And it goes sideways. Look at that slope. And look at the brain. That's bigger than us. That's bigger than Homo sapiens sapien today. What I'm trying to say is there was genetic hybridization taking place all over the world. In Australia, the deal was Homo sapien, well, an archaic Homo sapien, which we found, haven't we?
Yeah.
We found that was found with this one that we've got now, archaic Homo sapien and Pleiadian, make one species. On other places around the world, whether it's Syrians, whether Andromeda, it doesn't matter where it is, they were doing genetic stuff everywhere. And Carry On talks about the fact, in fact, there's a glyph there that talks about laboratory where they do genetic splicing, and above it, you've got a symbol for a DNA, which is 3 chords together, and a sharp splitting it in half. And we know that particular Carry On glyph is about the making of humanity and the mixing of two species. So this, look at this one, it slopes back pretty strongly too, but look at the front of it. It is so ancient looking, but it's smarter than us. So look, I can tell you one thing. Denisovans were about 1500 cc. Neanderthals about the same. We got 1700. This is 1400. Do you want to know which ones were the dumbest? Sapiens. They're the smallest brains of all these ones we found. Sapiens. And the second thing to remember is, ladies and gentlemen, we're only using 15% of our brain. What if that being I showed you was using 100% of its brain? Where will we stand by comparison? And maybe that's something we need to think about, because I think we have that potential within us. So this presentation is about our alien ancestry, and that's our job to prove that. What is really important, I think, is the fact that we've also been allowed to share the original prophecies for what happens at the end of this year. We've been given the privilege and information about exactly what's going to take place on the 21st of December, and I'm allowed to give that date, which I'm surprised about, 2020. And that, to me, is why these beings and these skulls and these rings and all these things have been found in the rocks, because it's part of that ceremony the original people will be doing on that day, and it's a culmination of ceremonies being done around Australia for the last decade.
Now,
So that to us is the second part, which is what comes next.
you guys are doing an online lecture because you guys have been lecturing around all over the place. You're doing an online conference. Presumably, you're going to reveal more information about that.
Yeah, a lot about that. Yeah, that was the whole
How can
point
people find out and join in?
It's in Australia. It's on the 3rd of May, which is I think a Sunday, which is about 9 a.m. Over in America, it's on the 2nd, and it's in their evening, depending which time zone. I've got that all up on the poster. So if you want to find out more about that, type in our alienancestry.com, and then that will give you a bit of information rundown of everyone and the other speakers. The timetable, all of that's there. There's links on Facebook as well. Yeah.
But outside the ad, because some people won't go to it, and that would be, I mean, I expect that, and that's cool. But what I would like to do to give justice to the elders is, could I give part of that prophecy now? Because some people won't go to this, and I still want them to know about it.
Go for it, yeah.
It's important because I wouldn't want it to be just, oh, we're making money out of this, and if you don't come, you don't get to hear about it. So what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, I hope I'm not taking up too much time.
Go for it, yeah, absolutely.
Well, look, the way this happened is this prophecy is being given to us in 4 sections. Okay, and it started about three years ago, and we've been giving this talk ever since. And what I would like to do is do that part. Now, since then, it's been amended and things have been added to it. And there's more detail with it. And of course, Evan's going to read 2 statements they've given. He's just going to read word for word what they've put up. And these are the keepers of the old way. And I can't believe this, but they've even told people where it's going to be, haven't they?
They have.
I'm quite shocked by this, because even when we spoke about it, we never, anyway, it's going to be at Uluru. The ceremonies are going to be there. But what I am going to tell you is what I was saying to begin with, and they came and approached us, and we're not running, by the way, we're not running the ceremony. So if you want to come and kill us, it won't make any difference, guys, because we're not doing it. We've just been invited to go, okay? But what I can tell you is how it started. It started about 3 years ago, when an elder from Victoria, a very highly respected elder, and I'll give his name up too. It is Brendan Murray. He rang me and told me about the change. And he told me it was going to be 2020 way back. And I never used the dates because I don't believe in dates and prophecy. Time doesn't work that well. Anyway, he told me this, and this part I can tell people. He said, and we all knew this was going to happen. He spoke about the fact that they knew this was coming, and 2020 would be the worst year ever. And he spoke then, and I've spoken many times about the fact there'd be a pandemic, that there'd be an economic collapse, and there'd be warfare, and fear would be everywhere. We knew this was coming, okay, because they know this is coming too. Primarily what happened is, this is what was told to me then, and there are a couple of variations. The timing's not right, but that's okay, it still works. They were called, the Pleiadians were called, and they knew there would be a time in the future when this would happen, when there'd be a final hurdle over the bar where the people went one way or the other. It was going to happen at some stage, and they were going to be part of this to an extent, but not directly, indirectly. And they'd been called. And the story we were told then is this: a ship would come and it would hover. And I know that Jinky said land and someone had said hover, but it was either one of the two, above Uluru, the rock there. And then it would wait to a time, which is the time I'm talking about. And then what happens is, what I was told then was, if there was a certain number of people in Australia that weren't fearful and still had a strong spirit, and that number, by the way, I'm disappointed to tell you, runs into 6 figures. Think about it. They have to be not fearful, not talking about negativity, and being positive. I don't know that you have 6 figures of people like that right now, but I think it's growing. Anyway, what they said was, if those people had that energy, whatever this device is, or what they call a magic box or whatever it is, it would take that energy, amplify it, and throw it into Uluru. Then Uluru would then send off into 5 directions on ley lines to different points in Australia. We know 2. One is at Standing Stone site that we briefly mentioned. Another one is at Carry On that we briefly mentioned. There's one in South Australia that I think goes through grid point 44 and down to Carter, Ramanjuri land, one up to Armand land and one into the Kimberley. And that's what we were told. And then what happened then is when those ley lines get energised, then it goes around the world. And if you listen to the elders, the Hopi, the Inuit, the Navajo, they'll all tell you the same thing. The change is coming and it starts in Australia. They've all said that. So what is the change? That I can tell you. It was a bit bizarre when I was told this. He said that the world would become two worlds at one time and two vibrations would work simultaneously at the same time. The Schumann resonance, which occasionally goes up to 150, I'm sure you're aware of that, will stay on that level forever. It will not drop. And then there'll be a separate resonance, which is around 7.8, the one that we live on a day-to-day basis. And they will coexist for a period of time. And then what happens is that every soul on this planet is drawn towards the vibration that suits themselves. If you're of a lower vibration, fearful, doing things wrong, you go to that vibration. If you're doing it another way, you go to a higher vibration. And then what happens over a period of a couple of months, they cannot coexist. That's not how matter works. One dissipates and dies, which is the lower vibration. The beings who are attracted to the higher vibration stay here. Now, we would live alongside one another for a couple of months, but it'd be like a shadow. They could be in this place too, but we could never touch.
The corner of the eye.
You see them in the corner of the eye. They're there just, but they can't touch you. You can't touch them. But both know the truth. So for those in the lower vibration, they go through months of agony. And then I asked the elders at the time, oh yeah, and then what happens when their souls go somewhere else and incarnate? And they said to me, no, they're crushed for good. And I never was happy with that. That always held me back a bit. But I've since been told by the ones that know that is utterly incorrect. The reason they can't incarnate here is because they're vibrating at 200, as they would be born, they die. Their soul couldn't take the vibration. It would just knock them over. They're not ready to absorb it, and it would kill them. It's not a judgment on them. It's that you're not ready to stay, because this Earth is one of the most amazing planets in the cosmos, and it's about to evolve. We must evolve with it, and if we can't, then you have to get off the ship. It's a bit like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So then what happens is that higher vibration then becomes what this planet is and where it's meant to go. So the planet itself is evolving. Now, if it turns out there's not 140, a certain number that I've forgotten, I don't know what it is anymore, and I can't believe when I kept saying you guys are talking about the bloody Bible. I said, what are you talking about? Anyway, whatever that number is, forget I said anything. I want the judge to strike that to the jury's memory, please. Okay, where were we? I've got lost it now. Oh, that's right. If the number is not enough, if it's too short, the machine doesn't work. And it's like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The whales swim off and say thanks for the fish, and they don't come back. Within 3 rotations of the planet, as I'm sure you do know, North magnetic pole is in Siberia making its way to China. Within 3 years, the Earth will split and the water will go around 3 times. But that isn't fair for the animals because they did nothing wrong. Humans, I have no issue if we get wiped out. We deserve it, but they don't. The idea of each human making their own judgment and not harming another animal, and the animals stay all the way through, that resonates with me. That is a real proper karma. So the deal is this. But here's the problem, and there is one with this. It sounded like good news, doesn't it? Well, I'm going to tell you now when I had a meeting, I'm going to give everyone one other piece of information from the second meeting. When we discussed this in more detail, and I was told more, and then I asked the obvious question. I said, what % of humans will go to the higher vibration? And they asked me, and I'm going to do exactly what they said to me. I'm going to ask you that question. What % do you think would go there? Now, I made a point before I said this. I said, I know a lot of people that know nothing about this, but they love people, they're good people, they'd fall over backwards to help people. And I gave a number. What number would you give?
1%.
Wow.
Oh, no. I said 25%. And I got laughed at like you're laughing. And I said, what, too low? He said, oh, no, too high. I said, what? I said, all right, I'll go to 10%. And he laughed again like you laughed then. And then he told me, and I couldn't go lower. I couldn't force myself to do it. He said 2 to 3%. And I looked at him and said, that's wrong. And I'm going to tell you guys this. I said, it's wrong. You need to know why it's right and why you were right and I was wrong. Mm. I said to him, that's wrong, man, because I know people I played tennis with. They were ringing up when the skull was trying to kill me for a while and I was on death's bed. And they were really concerned about my welfare and really were nice people. They just don't get it. I said, oh, he said, oh, really, don't they? I said, you've been coming to this planet, incarnating for hundreds of lives to do two things, to learn how to love and to learn why you're here. And these people haven't learned one of those two lessons. So to pass this, you got to get 51%, but you can get 49% for love. But if you know nothing about why you're here, you get nothing. You still fail. You have to do both. It's not enough to say, I now know how to like people. You've also got to understand what the whole purpose of this is about. That's what you're here. You're here to better yourself. It'd be a bit like coming to the earth and there was no evil here. And when you finished your life, you go back to your mate and say, what did you learn? Nothing. Lovely place, great birds, lovely fish, and lovely fjords. Remember, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy got an award for that. Yeah, really nice. But what did you learn? What struggle did you face? None. Same thing here. So what he said was this. If you don't know why you're here and don't understand the purpose of being here, then you need to go to school again. And this place won't be a school. It'll be a university. It'll be evolved. You're not ready to sit that exam. You must go elsewhere. I said, all right, okay, all right, we'll take them out. All right, that brings me down to 10% because 10% of the people do know this stuff. He said, but wait. He said, do any of those people say bad things about other people behind their back? I said, oh, most of them. He said, what have they learned? They're putting out negativity. By saying that, you're throwing negativity on this planet. Isn't there enough there already? Why are you contributing to that? Do you think we sent you there to do that? No, that fails too. If you say bad things about people behind their back, if you want to say something bad about them to their face, we accept that. That is face to face. That's proper. Behind their back, that's backbiting. That's gossip. And we don't have that. That can't be right. I said, all right, you got me down to 5%. He said, hang on for a sec. He said, I haven't finished. I said, oh, leave me alone. He said, Do you, me personally, said, do you ever think badly about people who do bad things to you? I said, of course. He said, oh, well, what sort of thought is that? Is that a positive or negative thought? I know you didn't put words to it, but what sort of thought was it? I said, negative. He said, and you don't think that thoughts have an impact, do you? I said, yes, they do. He said, well, why did you say it? It's the same thing. It's no different. So they don't make it either. I said, oh, for God's sake, I said, I'm with the other mob. I'm obviously not going to make it. But here's the point. He then said at the finish, he said, but don't worry. He said, you can become a last in the race right now, but we're only going to judge you at the finishing line on the 21st of December. He said, I don't care if you fall over 4 times in the meantime. We're only watching how you finish the race to finish. So the point I'm making with people is a lot of people might think if there's a change, I'll be there. It isn't that easy. When you said 1%, you were actually very close to the truth. It isn't that easy. You might think you know all the right words and you might like a lot of people, but you might have thoughts in there and they have an impact. And this is what I was taught. If someone annoys me and I think something bad about them, and it's a bit like this virus thing. You know, if people run around fearing something, hating it and not liking it, you're actually asking it to come and visit you. And when you say, I don't care, I'm just walking past this anyway. Whatever happens to you, it won't be much because you'll walk through it. The same thing here. We said it's like this. And the reason why they put up more, I know why they did this, because of the virus. They knew it was coming and they had to give people hope. So primarily what we want to do in this conference is sort of give a full story to give proof behind this prophecy so that when people hear the prophecy, they won't doubt it. And if I can, I want to leave you, and I'll make this point on the day too, with one last thing. For those people thinking, oh, what would these blackfellas know? I mean, they didn't even have a book when we got here and stuff like that. I want to leave you with a prophecy that was given to us by Auntie Minnie Mace. Yep. And that's a pretty deadly one. And it might make people think, hang on, they've got something online here. And this is one I forgot.
Hmm.
I can't even remember it. Seriously, I have no idea. I forgot it completely. And it was when we did a talk in Byron and we had Nina come up, who was quite sick at the time, and she brought a friend up, Lavinia. And Lavinia was sitting here in this room, I think, over there.
Hmm.
And she said, do you remember Auntie Minnie Mace's prophecy about the toilet paper? I said, what are you talking about? What? She said, do you remember what she said about 5 years ago about toilet paper? And I'm thinking, no, why would I? I mean, if you had a conversation 5 years about toilet paper, would you remember it? No. Anyway, this is what she said. We're talking about the change that was coming, because we've all known about this for quite some time. And she said, what's a sign? And Lavinia asked, what would be a sign? She said, the obvious one. She said, toilet paper. She said, what's going to happen is the first sign will be, there will be a massive run on toilet paper and people will be fighting to get toilet paper. And I now know why I didn't remember it, because it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? When the change comes and everyone's worried about living, I probably thought at the time, food, baked beans, soup. I'm thinking of things that go before toilet paper. What morons would be fighting for toilet paper? That's so stupid. Yeah. That's why I forgot it. I forgot it. But Lavinia didn't. This is what's important about this, ladies and gentlemen. If you think it's a lie, she then bought toilet paper, a room full of them. She filled the bloody place up because she thought there's going to be run on toilet paper and she's not going to get caught on it. Well, she had that for about a couple of years and thought after about 2-3 years, oh, this is rubbish.
I'll just use the toilet paper.
I'll just use it. She had no more toilet paper than anyone else. And if she kept it all, she could have gone on eBay or something like that and been a very rich lady, because she basically had thousands of rolls of toilet paper. But think about this. How many people in the world would have prophesied that 5 years ago? She did. She prophesied it and told us why it was happening. I would guarantee you, if you go around and ask for 7 billion people 5 years ago who had prophesied there'd be a run on toilet paper, to the stage I went to one department store once where they had a security guard at the toilet paper aisle with a seat to guard it, and he was sitting there wistfully because there was nothing left. But he stayed there. It was like, this is my spot, man. I'm not leaving. And when the next mob comes in, I'm going to be ready for them. Who would have predicted that? Auntie Minnie Mace would have, and no one else in the world would have. So, ladies and gentlemen, when I tell you, I mean, we aren't saying any of the stuff we just shared with you, and there's a lot more that Evan's going to do some readings, but not today. This comes from the keepers of the old way, from the oldest culture on the planet. And the Pleiadians came to Australia before anyone else. They knew this was coming, and this is a prophecy that goes back to the beginning of everything. And remember, original dreaming runs in a circle. What goes round comes round. The loop is complete. The hoop is complete, as the Indians would call it, the magic hoop. It's now complete, and we have a date. And that happens to be the time of the summer solstice, I'm told. It's also the time where a couple of planets are aligned, and the specific moment this takes place in Uluru is 9 o'clock on the 21st of December this year. So, yeah, that's what we're going to talk about, and what the whole of our presentation, that's why it's what comes next. It's very important people understand what then comes out of it. And then we've got an added bonus. We're going to do the first day, and then on the second day, we filmed somebody, Lionel Lorch, who is a Yidaki didgeridoo player and a healer of the very highest order, one of the best in the country, if not the world. And he does 2 sessions, 2 meditation sessions with the didge, and then he does another session, a healing session. And I'm going to tell you, everyone that did the healing session came away with a huge smile on their face, and better. I've seen them done before. And I'm thinking, if the people listen and watch this, they turn up the volume and just shut their eyes while he's playing the didge, they'll get the same effect. And that's something most conferences don't give you. An hour and a half of a culture man, and he spends time talking about how they've got a weather map, and their weather map is an ant. And if an ant is carrying a white rock, we know it's going to be hot because they're going to put it on top of the mound to reflect. And if it's
Black rock.
Black rock, it's going to be cold and they're going to try and absorb the heat. And when they put the mound up, it's about to rain. And he talks about how they used to work with the land. And during that time, he then placed the yadaki on 3 different occasions, twice for meditation and once for healing. And the healing one is not like anything I've heard before, I can tell you, and it works. So we're adding that on as well. I mean, you don't have to watch it all in a day because it goes for about 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah, but everyone has a choice to, it's archived for a week so everyone can come and go and watch bits and re-watch bits and whatnot. So there's that. And
primarily what we're trying to tell people is there is a change that's coming, don't be fearful. And in one respect, I know it's going to sound bizarre, but Evan and I have been doing this for 3 years. We told everyone there'd be a pandemic. It's going to scare the crap out of everyone like nothing else before because it has to be fearful and create fear. What we try and tell people is that if you're fearful, you're no help to us. This is really important. Being fearful is not a positive energy. And right now, we need people who are not fearful. And we're asking people never to be fearful because what this means is, yeah, it's not nice, it's bad, and it exists. And yes, Mr. Gates has got a lot to answer for, but we already knew he was like that, and his mob were doing that anyway. It's just more obvious now. He's now been caught with his finger in the till and a few other things as well. And by the way, for Christ's sake, don't have a vaccine made by them. That's like signing a death warrant. Don't even think about it. I shouldn't have said that. Sorry. Back to what we were talking about. Look, what we're talking about is we're past these idiots. We're going on to not minor distractions where the reptilians and draconians say, no, this is coming. They've only got one defense, a whole planet petrified. If they do that, it won't go on. It will not be turned on. And at the moment, whatever that number is, and I've forgotten what I said before, thank God for that. If it is 6 figures, which I know it is, we don't have that number at the moment. Like if you're sitting around thinking, oh, I'm okay, and then you start thinking, oh, no, I'm not, or someone's upset me, they're doing bad things. Remember, you spend all day thinking bad things about other people, you're no use to us again. Their rules for being part of this group are quite tough. At the moment, I'm still working on it. If they were asking me right now, I'm no use to them either. I've got some tidying up to do myself. But in the meantime, we all do. Because according to the original people, this is the moment we've been waiting for. They always said, we had a prophecy that the whitefellas would come to this country for 10 generations, then the old ways will return. And that's what's going to happen.
Wow. It's amazing. Wow.
Well, let's hope so. Remember, guys, don't shoot us. We're only the messengers. What we're doing is we're getting it from the old men and women. We've seen pictures of them. We know where they are. We've heard about them. We've never met them directly. We've had 2 interlocutors. One, they both come and met us. And I asked for a second one after the first one came, and an original elder did come. Apparently he was a clever fellow. Yeah, he's been named a clever fellow who came and saw me and gave me more information about the ceremonies. And some of that place I will never give up. We can't give some things up. But what we can give up is about 90% of the full prophecy as opposed to about 40% what we gave up today.
Wow, amazing. Well, guys, that was an amazing talk. I loved it. I loved all of it. Yeah, and I'd love to talk to you guys again on this because we haven't covered the New South Wales Stonehenge yet. I really want to get into that. People want to know. It's one of the best. It was one of the best snake mounds in the world, and we'll do that next time, eh? Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Let's do that next time.
Yeah, that's easy. There's plenty more where this comes from. We've got 10 years. Awesome. I think we've got about 60 sites in all. So
60
sites. There's no problem. We can always get another one in next time. No problem at all.
Okay, guys. Well, let's wrap it up. And I loved having you on, and we'll do it again soon. All right, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good fun. Thanks a lot, mate. I really like that one. Good on you.